Hello Galaxy, I'm Chris Perillo, and I'm here to share with you my thoughts on today's iPhone 15 announcements. Anything that might have played out in today's original broadcast, I was reacting live to those announcements here in the same spot on live.perillo.com on Twitch, where I happen to be simulcasting the recording of this video. In fact, behind me, you'll find one of our regular participants playing old Apple commercials. So this is a very Apple-y type of video. My journey with Apple has been a long one. I can't say I've always been a fan of Apple, and not to say that I'm not a fan of Apple anymore. I still use Apple products on a regular basis. I even use the iPhone 14 Pro Max that I got not long after launch, if only to try the dynamic island. And I know that's kind of overkill just to try this seemingly insignificant feature in the grand scheme of things. I'll come back to the dynamic island in a moment. But I started to figure out how to work the iPhone into my day-to-day routine. So since I'm live streaming on Twitch, live.perillo.com will redirect you just like the old days. I use continuity camera, and so many people, when they jump in to the live stream for the first time, are impressed that the camera follows me around as I move around in this little area. And I always explain it's continuity camera connected directly to my Mac. It's a wonderful feature. It gives me a chance to use the iPhone in a way that y'all probably don't use it on a regular basis. I don't have an iPhone as a daily driver. That ended right around the iPhone 8 Plus era. I got tired of iOS, and quite honestly, I felt that there was a better experience, greener pastures on the other side with Android. From my experience, I was 110% correct. I went to the Pixel, was happy with the Pixel software for a few generations. That changed, and I'm currently rocking a Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. That's my favorite. I feel that Samsung offers a best-in-class mobile software experience, stem to stern. Not perfect in every possible way, but I find the experience is the most fluid, snappiest, responsive, the most enabling mobile software experience for me, despite using Windows, using Mac OS, using Android, using iOS. I've used them all, and I continue to use them all on a daily basis. I still use the Pixel. It's pointed down at my 3D printer, which is also going more often than not. This is, the way that I've been able to accommodate devices that I might not use as a daily driver. So I'm starting off this discussion with this kind of clarity because I need you to understand that I do use these products, and I do have these products, and these products were not given to me. I paid for them with my own money. So I'm not looking for access to any kind of event or public relations connection. This is just my experience, and has been my experience, my perspective. The good news is we can have potentially a dialogue about what works and what might not work. But ultimately, your choice is yours. Hopefully, you can respect mine. I fell away from the iPhone not because of the hardware, which I know can be impressive, but the hardware rarely wins me over. It's the experience that wins me over, and so much of that is contingent on software. And that's one of the things I have to point out when, upgrading from iPhone generation to the next generation. These speed increases are very minor. When you're going, again, let's say from an iPhone 13 to a 14 to a 15, generation over generation, you're not going to see like huge leaps and bounds. But I don't think that speed is the killer feature of the iPhone 15. I don't even think the camera is going to be the killer feature of the iPhone 15, specifically the Pro or Pro Max, right? And again, I'll come back to that. So it's something that I do plan on upgrading to, upgrading my iPhone 14 Pro Max to the iPhone 15 Pro Max. I'm very happy with the array of colors because when it comes to devices, I'm Mr. Monochromatic. Like, I'm all gray, black, sure, I guess I could do white, but silver, I prefer, like, just monochrome when it comes to devices. And I don't know, I've always been that way. Color devices, not really something that I care to personally entertain. So seeing the array of titanium colors, at least with the Pro Maxes and the Pros, it didn't really faze me. The hardware never really moves mountains for me in terms of color, because I always go to black if I have a choice, or something, close to a graphite, whatever they want to call it in marketing terms. Even the titanium that the Pro series are going to be rocking, it looks neat. I guess it's a fingerprint magnet, but it'll be lightweight, which is important, especially if you are going with a larger device. That weight will add up, right? So I plan on using a case, even though I don't really use the phone and carry it around. I will likely be getting some kind of case as it remains connected to the system. The big change, of course, with the iPhones was no surprise to anybody who's been following the news. The EU basically forced them to go USB-C. That's, I feel, long overdue. I only have a couple of Lightning devices, as I pointed out when I got the recent upgrades for the keyboard with Touch ID, the Magic Keyboard and the Magic Mouse. So I still have Lightning devices. And so I can't get rid of the one Lightning cable that I have now, or will have at that point. But that's I feel a bigger deal, especially if you have other Apple products or non-Apple products, the interoperability of cables. So I feel that if Apple did not cover the carbon footprint discussion in this presentation, the whole live presentation could have been cut in half. They spent so much time talking about their carbon footprint, and I'm not sure how much of that is lip service. Is that just supposed to make us feel better about buying Apple products? I still feel they are contributing, and this is not a slam against this company, and not having other companies not be pulled into the mix. This is not just Apple's responsibility. It's every company's responsibility if they're manufacturing products that are going to wind up potentially in the landfill, like all the Lightning cables at some point in the future, right? All these cables are going to be going into the trash. I know there are people out there who still use devices that have Lightning. I mentioned I'm certainly one of them, but I'm not sure they needed to spend so much time on that. I'm like, who are they trying to convince? I get it. It's important to cover. But the skit that they did, I thought was perfectly done. And then they follow that up with basically explaining the skit. I'm like, yeah, we know. You literally just told us. And I swear, and I don't have an exact breakdown, but it just feels like they spent an inordinate amount of time talking about that when most people who were tuned in specifically for the Apple Watch or the iPhone and or both. So with that being said, as I have tonight's beverage, I'm sipping a Ninkasi. This is one of my favorite social networks, Mastodon. That's where you can find me, as well as everywhere else. But Mastodon has quickly become my home. There was actually, I feel, a good chatter. Normally, I'd turn to Twitter, now X, for a lot of that live chatter. But I found that the people that I follow on Mastodon were actually providing a better commentary than I would have expected otherwise. It's definitely not a dead platform if you haven't looked into Mastodon. I'm not aware of the Apple Watch because I don't use an iPhone. I did try wearing the Apple Watch without the iPhone, and within a day I was like, yeah, it's not going to work because I can't easily get to my data. I have the iPhone, but I'm not going to look up the screen, if I need to, configure something or check out, how many steps or yada, yada, yada. It's just, I feel that the watch value is a lot of it for a user like me would be locked away into the iPhone, and that's just not something I'm interested in doing. I am wearing the latest gen Samsung watch, and I've been very happy with it, honestly. It gives me everything I need, and I feel it remains to be seen how much more fluid the new Apple Watch experience is compared to earlier Apple Watches, including the most up until the most recent Apple Watch. That's something that drove me nuts about the Apple Watch is the jutteriness of the animations. They just have never been fluid. They've become more fluid over time, but despite these speed increases, this is the primary thing that holds me back from going back to the iPhone as a daily driver and using it for more than just a continuity camera. It's the software experience. So I see the Apple Watch, I'm like, yeah, that's neat, and I like the watch faces, and I like how it works, and I really like how it tracks things. I love, and I don't think this is a gimmick, the double tap. Okay, this is maybe hyperbolic. Genius. So smart. Like, that to me is the killer feature. And if you don't see that as a killer feature, I don't think you realize if it works well with implementation, as in you when you're intentional with it. My concern would be if you're not intentional and then it triggers something else. Like, when you accidentally swipe it, if you do something and it detects it as a double tap when you didn't mean to double tap. I don't know how that's going to play out. That all boils down to implementation. But I think it's a smart idea, in the way that we use these devices. That was a really good reason to upgrade from a previous generation watch, whether you're going the Ultra route, which is probably overkill for most people. Even the Samsung watch that I wore previous to this, the Pro, that had a tremendous battery life, I liked it. I liked having the battery life, but my patterns, I'm not an adventurer. I'm not someone who goes outdoors unless you force me to. Certainly don't go rock or mountain climbing, even casually. I don't use a lot of those rugged features. You're not going to find me theoretically trapped in the wilderness, right? So for me, not a big deal having the extra battery life to make sure I can get through a day without getting to a charger, because I've found that every day I was just charging the device at the same time, and I still do. So I ended up downgrading and getting a watch with a lesser battery life because of that. With respect to Apple, it's it's iterative, and you're getting speed bumps. I guess you're getting storage bumps, but will that add up for you and your experience? I don't know if it's going to add up as much as the double tap. That, to me, if I was an Apple Watch wearer, that would get me to upgrade easily. If I was in play, yeah, that would be a feature I'd use easily. Yeah, because you don't really have a choice. You have to interact with a hand. How many times have you used your nose to interact with your watch or your phone? I have. Because I can't. It would have come in handy. Genius feature. That was the only thing that really jumped out at me in respect to the watch, which again is unfortunate. I know they've got it tied to the iPhone because they're trying to sell, more of the ecosystem, but I feel that's unfortunate, because even though I carry and use, my daily driver is a Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, I would more than likely be in play for an Apple Watch. I would, not to slam any, the other manufacturers, but I probably would, if only for the general experience that it might provide in an overarching capacity. But again, it's locked away. So a lot of the watch announcements were lost on me. Now, the iPhone 15 Pro Max, the one feature that I feel for that's the killer feature, is and maybe you're going to disagree, the action button. And if you've never had an action button on a phone, you don't know what you're missing. This, again, is a bit of hardware, right, in conjunction with software. This one feature that would be compelling for me to upgrade, and may very well and probably should be compelling for you to upgrade too. If you don't see that as a big deal, you've never used it before. So what do I mean by that? So Android users, oops, sorry for knocking the microphone there. What kind of beer is this? It's an Imperial IPA. Good stuff. So what I can do is just double tap the power button, and then bam, camera opens. That's what an action button can do. So I don't have to fiddle around with swiping or whatever. Double click the power button, done. To be able to remap that to any app, great. I'm telling you, map it to the camera app. Thank me later, because it's iterative, but that's a huge deal. Heck, at least on this device, I can double tap and open the camera app, right, in whatever the state that I've chosen, or I can press and hold, and when I press and hold outside the camera app, what'll happen is my torch or flashlight will turn on. So it makes it easy to do it either way. So I've got the press and hold to do that, or the double tap action to open up the camera app. That was the thing that jumped out at me. Not the titanium, not the faster processor, but specifically that action button. That I obsess over the smallest things, but I'm telling you, these are small changes, the double tap or the action button, that'll make it a more cohesive experience for you if these are the devices that you choose to use, at least in the way that they're designed to be used. In terms of the regular iPhone and the iPhone Plus in the 15 range. Obviously, we see speed bumps, but the biggest deal is specifically that dynamic island, which I was, from the first moment I saw it, impressed with. The problem with the dynamic island isn't that it doesn't work well, it's that it hasn't really been adopted. Like, developers aren't necessarily taking advantage of that space. I don't know if by having it on more newer phones, they will take advantage of it, or if they're going to bypass it, thinking at some point in the future, there's going to be no island at all. Or it disappears because Apple eventually figures out how to put a decent camera under the glass. That time is coming. Not just for that smartphone, but for smartphones in general. We're not there yet, but we will get there. I guarantee it has happened. It will continue to happen, but in terms of quality, that's where it ain't there yet. And speaking of, cameras, right? We're getting a bump. Not to be confused with the camera bump, but here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing. They did note something that I'm interested in because they mentioned better HDR, but that's relative. For the past few iPhone generations, if you've been listening to me, and I'm not sure you have, the output, I don't care about the lenses. I don't care about the array and how they do this, that, and the other thing with the hardware. I'm only interested in the output. I don't care how you get there. This is the reason why I still feel that some of the best smartphone cameras I ever used were some of the first Pixels I ever used, years and years ago. And the Pixel lately, I can't say it's been as impressive as I would hope it to be. Samsung still has a ways to go as well. I'm not sure if I know of a perfect mobile camera, or at least one that I've used in conjunction with, in relation to the rest of the experience. But my main camera is the phone that I have on me, or the camera that I have on me, or cameras. So the thing that I've noticed about, and I'm not the only one, this has nothing to do with bias. I will be doing shootouts too. I'll be doing a video or photo comparisons between current flagships as I'm getting them, because I'm just kind of curious. The thing that has shocked me the most about recent iPhones is the details are crunchy, or have been crunchy in the scenarios that I've used, and common enough scenarios for me, overprocessed. So the whites and the brights tend to get blown out tremendously, so to the point where I'm like, do I have faulty hardware? I'm like, okay, first time maybe, second time no way. And then the blacks are just crushed. So I'm interested in learning how well it handles HDR in those specific situations. And that is, again, it comes down to what you choose to photograph in what scenario. A lot of the photos that I take are in less than prime shooting conditions. Yes, they may have improved shutter lag, which is great, but does that completely eliminate motion blur? This is something that the Pixel licked generations ago, right? Apple still hasn't necessarily figured it out, and for that matter, many other device manufacturers haven't either. These are common scenarios, right? Where less than prime lighting, less than prime conditions, and you just want to shoot a shot, get it off, and be done with it. So the new lenses, or the new sensors, even though what was it, twice as big on the Pro Max? So and I knew right away, I'm like, okay, that means better low light photography. So I'm going to be very interested in what happens in the indoor scenarios that I'm going to be testing in. But that only works well when you've got an optimized outcome. So will they have an optimized outcome? I don't care about the cameras. I care about the photos. And I think you do too. Unless you're a shutterbug, give me the lenses. No. I'm squarely in the realm of let me see what they look like. Then I let my eyes see. I know what I see. I can press a button and go. Like I know how to make something work in that capacity. And or more often than not, by and large, it's the hardware's responsibility to capture a good photo, and then the software to process it and make it look like, oh, this is great, this is an amazing photo, even in less than prime conditions. Pre-order starts this Friday, and then it's available. I just can't believe it. Like almost immediately thereafter, a week or so later, which to me is a pretty quick turnaround. So they must have licked quite a few hurdles in terms of manufacturing with these devices. So I'm interested in how many, I think more than anything, how many of you actually use the gaming aspects of an iPhone, right? Now we've got ray tracing built in. I understand the value of having AV1 decoding on device. That's actually amazing for streaming folks. Huge deal. But like in terms of actually gaming on the phone and playing games, do you do that? Like, what games do you play? I guess if I do mobile games, I'm horrible, when it comes to this. But I'm more like crossword puzzles, word games. I don't do Wordle. Is that something y'all do? I know that a great many of you would probably answer yeah because you're gamers. But on the phone? So what's interesting to me isn't necessarily that experience on the phone or the hardware, right? The underlying hardware, better GPU, re-architected, etc. It's what that is the precursor to, the M3, which they're nowhere near talking about right now. But that makes it a very compelling, scenario for what the M3 could very well be. And if many people are still on the M1 like me, I'm powered by an M1 MacBook Pro, and I skipped the M2 because I didn't think there was anything that would have been worth it. But the M3, with all of this baked in and much more powerful, could very well be a compelling upgrade from an M1. And I wasn't sure if M3 would have enough or if I'd be waiting for M4. But this is what I'm saying. Like, what they're putting here in the A17 Bionic is something that I can't imagine them not putting similar features into their next M-class processor. Whether or not you actually take advantage of it, completely different story. So, I'm interested. I'm maybe not excited about the new iPhone, but I guess I haven't been excited about a new iPhone for years because the software doesn't really improve. I do use iOS, but kind of begrudgingly. Like, it's just still a little sloppy. I know the Springboard really needs to be rebooted in so many ways, to the point where, like, I don't even manage icons on my iPhone. I'm like, no, I'll delete it all and just let it do the organization, because otherwise it's sloppy. When you try moving icons around and the jitteriness and then things jump and things pop, it's just, it's sloppy. And then the scrolling, unfortunately, even on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, the fastest one that was previously available, or still available, is still herky-jerky. It's still hiccups. I'm like, okay, cool. Not for me. I don't want that. So I like using the iPhone when I'm not using it as a phone. I use it from the other side. But I will be upgrading to the 15 Pro Max, if only to try it, and because I'm using it as a video camera, certainly every day, and maybe other improvements will come in tow. I don't know if it's necessarily going to improve here. It works very well today, connected as a continuity camera as it stands. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I'll be pre-ordering, talking about it. I don't know what y'all thought. If you were overwhelmed, underwhelmed, whelmed, what you were expecting, what you can't wait to use, what you're a little meh on. I'm kind of curious to know, just to kind of dipstick where you're at. I mean, I know where I'm at. I'm very happy with, trying things and using things the way that I do. I just try to find a place for all the devices that I get, because otherwise they just sit in drawers. And like, what's the point of technology if it just sits there and does nothing? Like, you want it to do something. You need it to do something. So I hope you found something to like in the new iPhones, potentially in the new Apple Watches. I'm very much looking forward to trying them, but I'm not going to hold my breath for improvements where I wanted to see them, and that is specifically squarely in the realm of software. And I just don't find it to be the best software experience these days. Sorry, not sorry. Samsung's kind of got Apple beat in that respect, and they don't even knock it out of the park in every respect. It's all subjective, though. If what you get works for you, you know what? I'm happy. That's great. You got to go with what works for you. But I hope you look at all the options and don't close yourself off because you don't understand it or you haven't used it. At least give me credit for that. I try using these things, and I do use these things, and I buy them to try them when I can, and when I can figure out where they fit. So that's about all I had to say about these announcements. I probably missed a few things here or there, but I'll be chatting as I usually am with the fellow geeks 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at live.perillo.com. I love you. I appreciate you. But at this point, I'm going to leave you to your own devices, and may the force be with you always.